providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
This is your
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and be unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Hearing is an underrated miracle. Intimate whispers, the lushness of symphonies, the soothing patter of rain on leaves. If you had that taken away from you, it would be a massive loss for most of us. Almost all of us go every day without really stopping to think about just how important it is to us.
Audible presents The Body, a guide for occupants, written and read by Bill Bryson, including original bonus material exclusively available at Audible. Listen free as part of your 30-day trial, $7.99 a month after 30 days, renews automatically.
What can you get from Tesco for £1 each this Halloween?
A pumpkin.
More.
A spooky pumpkin cup.
More.
Ghostly balloons. Spine-tingling spider webs. Ghoulish plates and napkins.
More. Yes, it is scary what you can get for just £1 each this Halloween.
Tesco. Every little helps. Available in selected larger stores.
It's going to be a bit chilly today. And with the worst of winter yet to reach London, you don't want to come home to a broken boiler. We're with you. So that's why with British Gas Home Care, we've got your boiler covered 365 days a year. We have thousands of engineers on hand to help get your boiler up and running again, and all from just 46p a day. Buy selected home care products online by the 28th of October and get 1 month free. Search British Gas Home Care. Conditions apply. Prices vary by postcode.
Sean, tell us about your upcoming Shaun the Sheep movie.
Oh yeah, that was a good bit.
Really? I never looked at it that way. Wow, you do your own stunts. Wait, that's my line. See Farmageddon, a Shaun the Sheep movie, as part of your year of endless adventures with Meerkat movies. Oh, spoiler alert. You just gave away the ending.
Qualifying purchase required. Tuesdays or Wednesday. Participating cinemas. Standard ticket only. Cheapest ticket free. One membership for 12 months. Conditions apply.
Global news 24 hours a day. On air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Republicans briefly brought House Democrats' impeachment investigation to a halt yesterday when 24 GOP House members stormed into a closed-door deposition with a Defense Department official.
We went to the door and we asked to have access to the information that we are entitled to do our job.
Republican Congressman Bill Johnson of Ohio, Pacific Gas and Electric meteorologist Scott Strenfel with a storm of a different kind in the Golden State.
It is a California-wide phenomenon.
Precautionary power outages are in effect at homes and businesses in the state where dangerous winds are bringing fire risk. Washington Nationals manager Davey Martinez.
Like I tell the boys, hey, just one day at a time, just stay in the moment, enjoy the moment, have fun.
The Nationals head home with a 2-0 lead in the World Series against the Houston Astros. 10 runs over their last 3 at-bats allowed the Nats a 12-3 rout of the Astros. I'm John Trout.
If you're at the top of your profession, you're listening.
Are those gains all going to the elite?
Bloomberg Surveillance.
Does it spread beyond manufacturing?
Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrell. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. European stocks and U.S. stock index futures are advancing alongside Asian peers as a raft of upbeat corporate results helped investors shrug off more signs that global growth is losing momentum. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 3 points, Dow futures up 22, NASDAQ futures up 31, the DAX in Germany's up 0.5%. 10-year Treasury, little change, yield 1.76%. Yield on the 2-year, 1.57%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.8% or 42 cents at $55.55 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.3% or $4.70 at $14.91.10 an ounce. The euro 1.1126 against the dollar. British pound at 1.2886 and the yen 108.69. And today we're looking for a report on durable goods orders at 8:30 Wall Street time, along with a weekly report on initial jobless claims. The Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index is out at 9:45 and its new home sales at 10. Comcast, Twitter, and Amazon among companies scheduled to report earnings today. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Thank you, Karen. About 24 Republican House members barged into a closed-door impeachment hearing yesterday. The president and his supporters have called the process unfair, and they want the hearings made public. House Democrats say they've been holding hearings privately so that witnesses cannot coordinate their stories. Hundreds of thousands of Californians are without power for the second time in 2 weeks as dangerously windy weather prompts safety shutdowns by the utilities. In baseball, the Nationals now lead the Astros 2-0 in the World Series. Last night, Washington won 12-3 in Houston. In the NBA, the Nets and Knicks lost their season openers. The Celtics also lost. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
It's 5:49 on Wall Street. It is time to check in with Bloomberg Opinion. You know, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's been left hanging as the EU failed to agree on a deadline extension for Brexit. Ambassadors agreed they should accept the British Prime Minister's request for more time. They just couldn't settle on how long he should get. Let's learn more about this from Bloomberg Opinion columnist Therese Raphael, joining us now from our London bureau. Thanks so much for taking the time with us this morning. Prime Minister Johnson won the backing in Parliament for the agreement, but the timing of all of this still up in the air. How does this cloud the outlook, not just for markets, but for everything else?
I think it clouds it considerably because the agreement that Johnson got in Parliament Tuesday night wasn't an agreement for his deal as it currently stands. It was an agreement in principle to send it to the next stage in which there would be extensive parliamentary scrutiny, possibly some amendments that would change it substantially. So Johnson knows that to continue through with that process is risking the deal either getting bogged down, getting turned down in the final vote, or getting amended beyond all recognition. Now, he'd probably like the EU to come back and allot only a short extension, as Macron is sort of, the French president is kind of hinting that he would like a November 15 date. But the EU is very wary of making a decision that would be seen to be interfering with Britain's political process of trying to work out what kind of Brexit it wants. So I think most of the betting right now is that the EU will do the sort of neutral thing and come back with a January 31st deadline, but that doesn't rule out the possibility that it will try to offer a kind of staged extension, an early deadline followed by a later one, or do something like that. We'll probably know on Friday when there is another meeting of EU ambassadors, and in the meantime, both Johnson and the opposition Labour Party need to decide how they will handle any extension.
I get that we are dealing with less data than we would like to be dealing with when it comes to a decision like this. My question, though, is what has the bigger benefit for the UK? A tight deadline that the French have been pushing for, or that months-long extension?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good question. My view is that the UK needs scrutiny over this deal. It is an incredibly complex deal. The implementing legislation is full of details that will impact how Britain's relationship with Europe, but also the relationship within Britain between England and Northern Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, how the border works, how financial transfers to the EU work, and that deserves a lot of scrutiny. So one way or the other, that needs to be raked over in parliamentary committees and in the full House, and that won't happen immediately if we go straight to new elections, which seems to be what many in Johnson's camp want. So, I think this does have to be a decision that's taken within Parliament and between the two main parties rather than the EU, but how the EU decides will obviously impact it.
And very briefly, we only have about a minute left, but the flip side of that, of course, is let's say they do go for that longer extension, which would be better for them to factor in all the different data that they'll be accumulating at the same time. That creates even more global uncertainty.
It does create uncertainty because if Johnson were to win an election in, say, December and get a parliamentary majority, as many predict, then we've got the likelihood that his deal passes Parliament. We get Brexit shortly after, maybe January 31st, and they move on to the next negotiations, which, by the way, are the real kind of, the real Brexit saga begins with those negotiations. So it's not over yet, even with an election, even with a Johnson victory.
Well, it sounds like we're just getting started. Bloomberg opinion columnist Therese Raphael, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time. You can read more on these and other stories from Bloomberg Opinion at Bloomberg.com/opinion and on the terminal by typing OPIN. Go. Karen.
All right, Amy, thank you. It is 5:53 on Wall Street. It's time for the Bloomberg Law Report. It's brought to you by American Arbitration Association. Business disputes are inevitable. Resolve faster with the American Arbitration Association, the global leader in alternative dispute resolution for over 90 years. More at ADR.org. Let's get to the legal stories we're watching this morning with Steve Potisk in the Bloomberg 99.1 Washington newsroom.
The U.S. Tax Court has ruled that state laws legalizing the medical or recreational marijuana industries do not change how those businesses are taxed at the federal level. The tax code provision that blocks them from getting federal tax deductions has been ruled constitutional. The National Wildlife Federation and other environmental groups are now suing the Trump administration for rolling back Obama-era clean water regulations. And starting today, European Union lawmakers will try to jumpstart legislation requiring multinational companies operating in the EU to publicly report the taxes they've paid in each country.
Bloomberg Law. Everything you need on one legal research platform. Guidance, analysis, and Bloomberg Market Intelligence. Find out more at BloombergLaw.com.
And now other legal news we're watching this morning. In the college admissions scandal, federal prosecutors are ratcheting up the pressure on actress Lori Loughlin and other parents who are fighting the charges against them. Prosecutors filed new bribery charges against 11 parents who did not plead guilty, adding to the earlier fraud and money laundering counts. For more on the prosecution strategy, Bloomberg's June Grasso speaks with former federal prosecutor Robert Mintz, a partner at McCarter & English.
Bob, might some read this as almost a punishment for the parents who are refusing to plead guilty and forcing prosecutors to take them to trial, which of course is their right?
Certainly some criminal defense lawyers have criticized the government for attempting to strong-arm the defendants to pleading guilty here rather than exercise their constitutional right to take the case to trial. But it's not unusual for prosecutors to add additional charges as a case leads up to trial, even though the underlying facts have not changed, because jurors may look at the same facts and find that defendants committed one crime but may not commit another crime because the elements of each of these charges are going to be slightly different. At the end of the day, prosecutors want to make sure that at least some of these charges will stick.
This is the second time that prosecutors have added charges for the same offense. And the prosecutors reportedly warned the parents and gave them deadlines of Monday to change their pleas to guilty or risk facing a new charge. And that did lead to a sort of mini wave of 4 parents, including Douglas Hodge, who's a former chief executive of PIMCO, pleading guilty on Monday. Now, is that just prosecutors playing hardball, or is that overzealous prosecution?
It's really standard playbook for prosecutors to ratchet up the pressure on defendants who have not yet pled guilty in order to try to convince them that their chances of spending less time in jail will increase if they take the guilty plea now rather than pressing the government and taking the case to trial.
Are prosecutors going to be tougher about making a deal as they approach trial and as they start preparing for trial?
The short answer is yes. The prosecutors are allowed to factor into their decisions about what kind of plea deal they're going to offer, how much work they have had to put into that case, preparing it for trial, because it is not possible for prosecutors to try every single case that they ever indict. So they do give a benefit to defendants who decide to plead guilty early on, accept responsibility, and it allows the government to avoid all of the time and expense in preparing for the trial. So if you wait till the very last second and try to take a plea on the eve of trial, generally prosecutors will not give you the same deal that they would have given you months before had you decided to plead guilty early on in the case.
And that's Robert Mansa, partner at McCarter and English, speaking with Bloomberg's June Garasso. Catch more of that interview, plus analysis of the latest legal news, by subscribing to the Bloomberg Law Podcast or downloading the show at Bloomberg.com/podcasts. And attorneys can find exceptional legal research and business development tools at BloombergLaw.com. Futures this morning higher. S&P futures up about 3 points. Dow futures up 15. NASDAQ futures up 30. 10-year Treasury, little change, yield 1.76%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.57%. And Bloomberg Daybreak continues. This is Bloomberg.
They don't chant your name when you give blood or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
You're in charge of hiring and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its cymbals when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Carl's All Change Casserole.
So, Chloe walks in from school. Tears all over her face.
Daddy,
she says,
I don't want to eat animals anymore.
I blooming love my meat. But not as much as I love my little girl. That's why we've made some changes to our old favourite, sausage casserole. Now with meat-free Cumberlands, but still with my magic touch. A dollop of mango chutney. Just as tasty as it used to be.
Better, actually.
Make your own with the new Tesco Plant Chef range. Food Love Stories. Brought to you by Tesco.
Of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Thursday, October 24th, 2019. Coming up this hour.
Tesla shares soar after the electric car maker posts a surprise profit.
Amazon leads almost 50 companies reporting earnings today.
It's the end of an era as Mario Draghi makes his final ECB policy decision.
And the EU keeps Boris Johnson waiting over the length of a Brexit extension.
Republican House members storm a secure room and disrupt the Democrats' impeachment inquiry, plus lights out again in California. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. Another win for the Washington Nationals. They lead Houston in the World Series 2-0. Knicks and Nets both lost their season opener.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good morning, I'm Amy Morris.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and futures this morning are moving higher. We're coming up to 6:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are up 3 points this morning. Dow futures up 17, NASDAQ futures up 31. The DAX in Germany's up 0.5%, so is the CAC in Paris, and the FTSE 100 up 0.9%. Nikkei 225 in Japan gained 0.6%, and the Hang Seng in Hong Kong jumped 0.9%. 10-year Treasury, little change, yield 1.76%. Yield on the 2-year 1.57%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.6% or 36 cents at 55.61 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.3% or $4.30 at 14.9140 an ounce. The euro 1.1129 against the dollar. The yen at 108.68. Amy.
Thank you, Karen. We begin with earnings. We see Tesla shares surging more than 17% this morning. The electric car maker reined in expenses and posted its first profit in almost a year. Let's get more from Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
The maker of the Model 3 sedan earned $1.86 a share in the third quarter, beating analysts' average estimate for a 24-cent loss. CEO Elon Musk has announced at least 3 rounds of job cuts since last year and restructured business units to counter slowing sales of its higher margin models. Revenue fell to $6.3 billion in the third quarter, missing analyst estimates and down from $6.8 billion a year ago. Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Charlie, thank you. A different story this morning for Ford investors. The stock fell 2.5% in late trading. The automaker cut its full-year forecast by $500 million. Higher warranty costs, elevated incentive spending in North America, and lower China sales prompted Ford to slash its outlook for 2019 earnings before interest and taxes to a range between $6.5 billion and $7 billion.
Microsoft reported quarterly sales and profit that were better than estimated. The company got a boost from demand for its Azure cloud computing programs. Meanwhile, revenue from the subscription-based Office 365 for corporate customers rose 25%. Shares are up almost 1% this morning.
And the earnings barrage continues today with almost 50 companies in the S&P 500 reporting and heading the list: 3M, Amazon, Intel, and Twitter. Let's get a Twitter preview from Bloomberg's Jeff Bellinger.
Bloomberg Intelligence says Twitter's platform cleanup and other initiatives started paying off in the second quarter, and analysts say investors will want to hear more today about the short messaging service's efforts to reduce harmful activity and what it is doing to make it easier for users to find new content. Forecasts are for Twitter to post an adjusted profit of 20 cents a share on revenue topping $875 million. Jeff Bellinger, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Let's take a quick look at some key earnings in Europe this morning. Nokia shares are down 20%. The Finnish equipment maker has lowered its earnings guidance for this year and next. It is also halting dividend payments. Royal Bank of Scotland's profit in the third quarter has been wiped out by a more than $1 billion charge tied to a long-running mis-selling insurance scandal. That stock down now more than 2%, and shares of AstraZeneca are up more than 3%. That company raising its 2019 sales outlook again.
Boris Johnson is waiting on the European Union's verdict on whether to grant the UK a third Brexit extension. As Bloomberg UK government reporter Alex Morales reports, EU ambassadors agreed they should accept that request, but couldn't settle on how long Britain will get.
The French are pushing for a tight deadline of November the 15th, while many other countries want to give the UK the 3 months it has asked for. Ambassadors resolved to reach a decision when they meet again on Friday. A tight deadline might help Johnson push his deal through Parliament as he wins around MPs who are fearful of the alternative of a no-deal Brexit. If a long extension is granted, it opens up the chances of an early general election, which Johnson says he wants, and the opposition Labour Party has said it'll allow, but only once a no-deal Brexit on October the 31st is ruled out. In London, Alex Morales, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, thank you, Alex. And it is the end of an era. Mario Draghi makes his final ECB policy decision later this morning. Bloomberg's Ewan Potts joins us now live with the latest.
Good morning, Amy and Karen. Whatever it takes, Mario Draghi's most famous words as president of the European Central Bank. He pledged and delivered intervention to stop the breakup of the Eurozone. But as he heads into his final meeting today, he faces weak inflation and a slowdown in the region's already tepid growth. As Christine Lagarde gets ready to take over, he also leaves behind a governing council that is deeply divided over the need for looser monetary policy. In London, I'm Ewan Potts, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Thanks, Ewan. It's a busy morning for policy decisions. The Swedish central bank left rates unchanged, but says the interest rate will most probably be raised in December to 0%. Norway's central bank also kept rates unchanged, while Indonesia's central bank cut its key interest rate for a fourth straight month.
SoftBank will seek a U.S. national security review of its WeWork bailout. Bloomberg has learned that in the coming weeks, SoftBank will file with the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. The Japanese conglomerate has agreed to a rescue deal with the struggling office rental startup.
And Google is dismissing claims it's developing an internal surveillance tool to monitor workers' attempts to organize protests and discuss labor rights. Employees say they've discovered a new tool for the custom Google Chrome browser installed on all workers' computers. Google says the claims are categorically false, and the tool is a pop-up reminder about how to use the calendar. Futures this morning are higher. S&P futures up 3 points. Dow futures up 19. NASDAQ futures up 31. 10-year Treasury up 1/32. The yield 1.76%. And straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news. And this is Bloomberg.
Thank you, Karen. It is 6:07 on Wall Street. Let's bring in Michael Barr to find out what else is going on in the world. Michael.
Thank you very much, Amy. A group of Republicans disrupted a hearing of the Democrats' impeachment inquiry by storming into a secure room at the Capitol on a protest carried out with the blessing of President Donald Trump. Representative Mo Brooks of Alabama was among the 24 GOP House members.
By golly, if they're going to do it in public. Don't hide it from the American people. Show your face where we can all see the travesty that you are trying to foist on America.
California Democrat Eric Swalwell was in the room when the Republican House members stormed in.
We're not going to let it deter us. We move forward. The chairman is determined to get this done fairly, but also swiftly. And they can continue the hijinks, but they're just delaying the inevitable, which is this president is going to be held accountable.
The deposition with Defense Department official Laura Cooper eventually began about 5 hours behind schedule. Syrian state media and a war monitoring group say a car bombing wounded several people in a town taken by Turkey-backed rebels from Kurdish fighters during Ankara's invasion this month into northeastern Syria. It comes as the U.S. says it is closely monitoring the scene in Syria. Bloomberg Bob Moon reports.
As the president lifts sanctions on Turkey, his own special envoy for Syria, James Jeffrey, tells Congress Turkey's incursion is a tragedy and that Ankara-backed forces are likely behind several war crimes.
We haven't seen any widespread ethnic cleansing in that area since the Turks have come in. Many people fled because they're very concerned about these Turkish-supported Syrian opposition forces, as are we. We've seen several incidents which we consider war crimes.
President Trump says he's open to meeting with President Erdogan, and that could happen in the very near future. Bob Moon, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Parts of Northern California have gone dark in the first stage of a mass blackout that could eventually leave more than 1 million people across the state without power. PG&E has cut service to customers in counties near Sacramento and Napa Valley in an attempt to keep its power lines from sparking wildfires and high winds take place. An officer who was fired in the 2014 chokehold death of Eric Garner is suing the NYPD and the police commissioner to be reinstated. Daniel Pantaleo's lawyer argued that his client's termination following an administrative trial was arbitrary and capricious. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts, more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Amy.
All right, thank you, Michael. And it is 6:10 on Wall Street. Time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. Here's John Stashower.
Amy, to think the Washington Nationals were known as the team that could never win a postseason series, now they never seem to lose a single game, looking to make it 8 wins in a row this postseason and 2 straight World Series wins in Houston. The Nats and Astros were 2-2 in the 7th.
Hurt has never had a postseason home run. Here's the 1-0. Swinging a long drive, left field. He's got one now. Kurt Suzuki gives the Nationals the lead. That one above the Crawford boxes. Kurt Suzuki's first career postseason home run. And the Nationals lead the Astros 3-2 here in the 7th inning.
Nationals radio the call. That began an onslaught. 5 more runs in the 7th, 3 in the 8th, another in the 9th. Washington won game 2, 12-3, and now heading home. 2 wins from the first championship in franchise history. Their 2 aces, Max Scherzer and then last night Steven Strasburg, beat the 2 Houston aces, Garrett Cole and last night Justin Verlander. Game 3 tomorrow night in D.C. Game 1 of 82 for the Knicks and Nets. They both lost. The Knicks in San Antonio 120-111. The Knicks had a 1-point lead going to the fourth quarter. Marcus Morris led them with 26 points, and the rookie R.J. Barrett was impressive. He scored 21. No NBA player has ever had a debut for a team like Kyrie Irving had in Brooklyn. He poured in 50 points, but at the end of overtime, he fell down, got up, missed a game-winning shot, and the Nets lost to Minnesota 127-126. The Knicks and Nets will face off tomorrow at the Barclays Center. Redskins and Vikings kick off NFL Week 8 tonight in Minnesota. Drew Brees says he's going to play Sunday for the Saints. He's been out the last 5 weeks with a thumb injury. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stanshauer. Amy?
All right, thank you, John. It is the latest fight by female athletes worldwide for greater equality with men. A move by Spanish women coming a few months after U.S. soccer players used the World Cup in France to bring increased attention to women's fight for equal pay. There have been moves by other female athletes worldwide demanding more equality. You are listening to Bloomberg Daybreak here on Bloomberg Radio.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive, and make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
The nights have started to draw in. And at DFS, we know that can only mean one thing. Everyone will want to spend more time at home, getting nice and cozy. You can't beat it. That's why all our sofas are handmade to order, and many are guaranteed to be delivered in time for Christmas. So you can look forward to cozying up this winter, knowing your new sofa won't let you down. DFS.
To succeed in small business, you need technology that runs efficiently. When you partner with a Dell Small Business Technology Advisor, you get advice, one-on-one partnership, and tailored productivity solutions, including computers with Intel Core processors, servers, storage, networking, plus industry-leading monitors and accessories. It's how they help your small business make the most of every minute. To speak with an advisor today, call 0800 085 4878. That's 0800 085 4878.
This autumn, as the nights draw in, beat the cold with Now TV. Curl up with the latest blockbusters, including Bohemian Rhapsody and Hotel Mumbai. Plus, with over 40 new movies added each month, from Aquaman to How to Train Your Dragon 3, Now TV's got you covered, wherever you feel like watching. Get cozy with the latest and best movies for just $11.99 a month. Search Now TV today. 18 plus month passes auto renews unless cancelled. Terms apply.
Conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Sherry Ann on Daybreak Asia.
Tesla stock is jumping in late trading after a surprise by posting its first profit in almost a year. Joining us now is Tiger's Financial Partner CIO Ivan Feinseth. Give us a breakdown of what you think the numbers look like.
They're profitable, and they opened the Shanghai, China factory, which opens to them the world's largest car market and also the largest electric car market. They still increased production, and even though they missed their goal of, I think, 100,000 cars, they still came pretty close.
Is it a concern that revenue, though, is slowing? Does that say something about where Tesla's growth can come from in the future?
Well, I don't think it's slowing as much as the mix is now shifting more toward the 3, which is a lower priced car than the S. And the next big thing for them will be the Y.
They kept emphasizing how cheap it is to make those Model 3s in China. Should we be a little bit more concerned about the pressure on margins as they gravitate towards the lower price models?
I'm not that concerned about margins. I know overall a lot of people on Wall Street look at gross margin. I don't think gross margin is as important as the net margin. But and that I think will come as they continue to increase the operating efficiency of the company and also amortize their operating costs over more and more cars.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Stocks rising in Europe and U.S. stock index futures also edging higher as a raft of upbeat corporate results help investors shrug off more signs that global growth is losing momentum. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are up 3.5 points this morning. Dow futures up 27. NASDAQ futures up 34. The DAX in Germany's up 0.6%. 10-year Treasury up 1/32, yield 1.75%. Yield on the 2-year 1.57%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.5% or 29 cents at $55.69 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.3% or $4.20 at $14.9150 an ounce. The euro 1.1129 against the dollar. British pound 1.2890, and the yen is at 108.67. We are watching for a report on durable goods orders out today at 8:30 Wall Street time, along with a weekly report on initial jobless claims. The Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index is out at 9:45, and it's new home sales at 10. And Comcast, Twitter, and Amazon among companies scheduled to report earnings today. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, Republicans brought the Democrats' inquiry to a halt as around 24 GOP House members stormed into a closed-door deposition. The GOP maneuver delayed a deposition with senior Defense Department official Laura Cooper until mid-afternoon, about 5 hours behind schedule. People across Northern California could be without power for the second time in 2 weeks today. Utility companies say the shutoff is aimed at preventing wildfires caused by downed power lines. In baseball, the Nationals now lead the Astros 2-0 in the World Series. Last night, Washington won 12-3 in Houston. In the NBA, the Nets and Knicks lost their season openers. The Celtics also lost. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Amy.
All right, thank you, Michael. It is 6:19 on Wall Street. We're live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. This is Bloomberg Daybreak. As the head of the European Central Bank, Mario Draghi is preparing to step down and hand the reins over to Christine Lagarde. And while Draghi's actions during his tenure at ECB were not always well received, they are bound to help at least somewhat with this transition. We want to bring in now Yana Rando, Bloomberg News European Economy Editor, joining us now live. Yana, thank you so much for taking the time. You know, the ECB is going to announce its policy decision in an hour and a half. What is expected today?
To be honest, not very much. The ECB announced a massive stimulus package at its last meeting. It cut interest rates further below zero. It restarted, or it announced it would restart asset purchases. It made longer-term loans more favorable. So it was a big, big splash at the last meeting. this time around, it's very much a holding operation. A lot of questions in the press conference will probably focus on Draghi's legacy, on his relationship with Germany, but policy-wise, I wouldn't get too excited.
You know, I was going to ask you about that very thing. This is going to be more of a farewell bon voyage for Draghi than pretty much anything else today, huh?
Very much so. He made a big difference, of course, during his presidency. It was a very tumultuous one, a very rocky one. When he took over in 2011, the financial market crisis was morphing or had morphed into a debt crisis. Greece was at risk, but even Italy didn't look too well. And then in the summer of 2012, of course, came his famous pledge to do whatever it takes to save the euro. That really made a difference, and everything else from there followed on. Record low interest rates, quantitative easing. So the ECB that he hands over to Christine Lagarde at the end of next week looks very, very different from the ECB he took over in 2011.
So is that how you would describe his legacy? He's been credited with saving the Eurozone, so did he?
I think so. He did save the euro. The euro is still around. Greece is still a member. It has grown under his watch. If you ask me, is the euro here to stay? That's a totally different question. I don't think any one of us has the answers. Has the answer. If you ask him, he would probably say yes. He's a committed European. He doesn't see any other way. But of course, there are risks. There are many risks. There's a lot of criticism that his policies have gone too far. And it is for the next president, it's for Christine Lagarde to smooth over differences in the governing council and to make sure that the euro will be here for the future.
Okay, let's talk about the future. Christine Lagarde taking over. What is she inheriting?
She's inheriting an economy in a slowdown. Every signal we've seen recently in terms of momentum is rather gloomy. Actually, confidence is low. Germany probably slipped into recession. Inflation is still well below the ECB's goal. It's not even 1% at the moment. And it needs to go back up to below but close to 2%. So there is a lot to be done. Monetary policy is very accommodative. There's very little the ECB can actually do going forward. And that's why you hear Draghi, every policymaker on the governing council, and even Christine Lagarde already talking about how governments need to step up their efforts, how governments need to embrace fiscal stimulus, they need to reform their economies to make sure that whatever the ECB has done will actually be successful and help policymakers out there.
So as she takes over, what is the first thing Christine Lagarde should do?
One of the things that is very high up on her agenda is actually a policy review. The governing council is struggling to bring inflation back up to where it should be. And over the past couple of months, we've had a discussion of should we talk about if our mandate is still appropriate, our definition of price stability? Should we maybe change the way we're looking at this 2% level that has established or has been established as more or less the target in the central bank community around the world? Our strategy is still up to date. Do we need to be more innovative? Do we need to find different ways of stoking inflation? So that policy review will kick off under Christine Lagarde. That is probably her biggest task in her first year, to look at what she has, what she finds, and then to come up with a way to make sure that the ECB will maintain its credibility, will maintain its ability to deliver price stability in the Eurozone.
All right, Jana Randall, thank you so much for taking the time with us. Jana is the European economy editor for Bloomberg News. Checking Wall Street futures, S&P futures up 3.5, Dow futures up 27. 33 and 0.75 NASDAQ futures are higher. It's 6:24 on Wall Street. Just ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak, we'll check more on the markets, the latest news, business, economics, and finance. I'm Amy Morris. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Shares of Ford are motoring lower in pre-market trading after the company cut its full-year forecast by $500 million. The latest sign that an $11 billion restructuring by CEO Jim Hackett will take more time to pay off. The profit warning comes after a rocky quarter for Ford, with North American profit margins edging down due in part to plunging sales of its cash cow Explorer SUV following a bungled launch. Shares of Tesla are higher, though, after CEO Elon Musk delivered positive earnings that surprised investors and said he's ahead of schedule on a new China plant and the crossover Model Y. Stock futures point to a higher open. S&P futures up 3, NASDAQ futures up 31, Dow futures up 20. NYMEX crude is down about 0.7% at $55.60 a barrel. Overseas European markets are rising after Asian markets rose today. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
The lifeblood of tech startups isn't just money. It's executive and technical skills. The kind of skills that companies need to build real products. And the skills that venture capitalist Chris Sugden of Edison Partners sees in the graduates that are coming out of New Jersey Institute of Technology.
The amazing thing about NJIT is their graduates, they have multiple offers on average, not just one. They're coming out with real skill sets that are immediately hireable and available to them. I think we see an understanding by the faculty and administration at NJIT that we've got to train and educate the whole student, not just their, one side of their brain. And I do think that's sort of part of the DNA today. There's practical and there's sort of academia, and merging those two together and understanding that if we're going to have our young people go get great jobs and have great successful careers, they've got to have both sides of their brain activated. And I think we see that with NJIT.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
They don't chant your name when you give blood, or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
So it's not fair, self-service checkouts. Let's forget the fact you're now working on a supermarket checkout. As soon as you put anything past the scanner and placed it down on that bagging area, you literally just nudge. Literally, a blueberry falls out the bag. And it's going, thanks to getting assistance. You need assistance. And now you've got to wait there for hours because everyone else is moving things. It's just not fair.
If you want fair, you want fibre broadband from TalkTalk. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Fairer broadband for everyone.
There's something for everybody this Halloween at Aldi. Dead good sweets, decorations, face paints. Be afraid. Be very afraid to miss out on these shockingly low prices. In store now. Everybody get to Aldi for an amazing Halloween.
Halloween's back.
The Peugeot Professional Van range is the beating heart of businesses across the UK. Whether you're on the road with only your DAB radio for company or navigating tight spots with rear parking sensors, all Peugeot Professional Vans give your business that edge. Visit your local Peugeot dealership during our October van event from the 10th to the 31st of October and drive away with an exclusive finance offer. Master the impossible. Peugeot Motor Company PLC is acting as a credit broker, not a lender. Finance subject to status. Terms and conditions apply. Business users and over 18s only. Guarantee may be required. PSA Finance UK Limited.
This is not just a pumpkin. This is an M&S Halloween pumpkin, ready to carve spooky faces for scaring witches, werewolves, and your neighbours. And the price has been carved to a scarily low 65p. This is not just food. This is M&S food.
Offer on 31st of October. Selected stores only. T's and C's apply.
Casting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
It's 6:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm Amy Morris.
And I'm Karen Moscow. We are just about 3 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date on the news you need to know at this hour. U.S. futures are higher this morning as investors await another batch of earnings. Tesla is leading the gains. Shares up about 19% after the electric car maker posted a surprise profit. Ed Ludlow has more from the Bloomberg 960 and 103.7 newsroom in San Francisco.
Almost nobody saw it coming, but cost cuts at Tesla's Fremont plant and deferred revenue from Autopilot delivered a boost for margins and ultimately a profit. Tesla did make record deliveries in the third quarter, but revenue dropped to $6.3 billion. In fact, it was the first year-on-year revenue decline since 2012. On the call, CEO Elon Musk said the Shanghai Gigafactory is ahead of schedule and is forecasting that the upcoming Model Y SUV is going to outsell all of the other Tesla models combined. In San Francisco, Ed Ludlow, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Ed, thank you. And 3M crossing the Bloomberg right now. Third quarter net sales missing analyst estimates.
Shares of Microsoft are up almost 1%. Sales and profit topped analysts' estimates.
eBay shares down more than 6%. The company gave a revenue forecast that fell short of analyst estimates.
Nokia shares are down 20%. The Finnish company cut its outlook and suspended its dividend.
And 46 companies in the S&P 500 do report earnings today, headed by Amazon. We get a preview from Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
The analyst survey by Bloomberg see the online retailer reporting adjusted earnings per share of $7.54 on revenue of $68.69 billion. Analysts at Bloomberg Intelligence say Amazon's move to one-day shipping will likely boost third-quarter sales as a Prime Day record and incremental sales counter an international slowdown. Wall Street will also be keeping an eye on Amazon Web Services, where analysts say growth of over 40% will be challenging given the larger revenue base. 53 analysts say the stock is a buy, 2 say it's a hold, none say it's a sell. Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, thank you, Charlie. The European Union is keeping Boris Johnson waiting. EU ambassadors agree the British Prime Minister should get more time to work out a Brexit deal, but they can't agree on how much.
And the ECB announces its monetary policy decision after the final meeting of President Mario Draghi's term. No policy change is expected. And we're just hearing from Northrop Grumman, that just crossing the Bloomberg as well. Third quarter sales just missing analysts' estimates. And futures this morning, taking a look at the markets, are moving higher. S&P futures up 3.5 points. Straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news. And this is Bloomberg.
All right, thank you, Karen. It is 6:33 on Wall Street. Let's bring in Michael Barr to find out what else is going on in the world. Michael.
Thank you very much, Amy. A closed-door deposition in the impeachment inquiry went off the rails yesterday after about 24 Republican House members stormed the secure room it was being held in. The Republicans were protesting the Democrat-led impeachment process, saying it was unfair to them and the president. GOP Representative Buddy Carter.
This needs to stop. It needs to stop right now. We need open government. This is the United States of America.
The deposition with Defense Department official Laura Cooper eventually began after a 5-hour delay. Attorneys for President Trump argued to block a subpoena issued by New York State prosecutors for the president's tax returns. In their appeal, the president's lawyers argued that Trump, while he is in office, cannot be subjected to any part of a local criminal proceeding. The House approved legislation to better protect the country's elections from foreign interference. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has the story.
Some of the forecast models that we look at, such as the European.
The third major bill the Democratic-controlled chambers passed this year addressing problems that arose in the 2016 election, SHIELD Act, would require that candidates and political committees notify the FBI and other if a foreign power offers campaign help. It also tightens restrictions on campaign spending by foreign nationals and requires more transparency in political ads on social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter. The White House has threatened to veto the bill if it reaches the president's desk, saying it is redundant, overly broad, and unenforceable. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Thank you. My apologies for playing the wrong audio. Now, firefighters in Northern California are battling high winds and dry conditions as they try to bring the Kincaid fire in Sonoma County under control. The fire has prompted evacuations. More than 1 million people in Northern California could be without power after PG&E shut off electricity to prevent wildfire caused by downed power lines. PG&E Chief Meteorologist Scott Strenfel says they're keeping a close eye on a wind event this weekend.
Some of the forecast models that we look at, such as the European model, suggest that this could be the strongest wind event of the season, unfortunately, and potentially stronger than the October 9th through 11th PSPS event.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Amy.
All right, thank you, Michael. It is 6:36 on Wall Street. Time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. Here's John Sashauer.
Amy, when the Capitals recently won the Stanley Cup, it ended 26 years without a title in D.C. In fact, none of their 4 major teams had reached a final or even semifinal round, but the Caps won the Cup. The WNBA team in D.C. just won a championship, and now the Nationals in very good shape for capturing the World Series. 12-3 win in Houston for a 2-0 series lead. This game was 2-2 in the 7th inning. Kurt Suzuki homered off Justin Verlander. The Nats tacked on 9 more runs over their last 3 at-bats. Steven Strasburg beat Verlander, who's 0-5 in his career in the World Series, and what a run the Nats are on. Going back to the regular season, they've won 18 of 20. They've won 8 straight in the postseason, 5 on the road. Game 3 is tomorrow night in D.C. The last 2 teams to lose the first 2 World Series games at home and still win the series. The 96 Yankees, the 86 Mets. As the Mets continue to look for a new manager, the Cubs have their man, David Ross. He's taken the Aaron Boone route. No managerial experience, was an ESPN broadcaster. Ross was on the Cubs World Series winning team in 2016. In Brooklyn, Kyrie Irving's Nets debut. All he did was score 50 points, most ever for anyone playing for a team for the first time. But Kyrie and the Nets lost in overtime to Minnesota, 127-126.
None of that stuff matters unless you get a win. The race is to get as many wins as you can in the 82-game span and, put yourself in position down the stretch. So, like I said, we got 81 more to go. We just take it day by day.
Knicks dropped their opener in San Antonio, 120-111. Tiger Woods shot 64. He's tied for the lead after the opening round in Japan. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. Amy?
All right, thank you, John. It is 6:37 on Wall Street.
The following is an editorial from Bloomberg Opinion.
No advanced society can thrive without higher education, but the U.S. system is falling short. One problem is that the price of a college education has outpaced both incomes and federal grants. For the lowest income quarter of students, the cost of attendance is roughly 30% higher in real terms than it was in 1996. That's about 80% of average family income for this group. The government has sought to fill the breach with a crazy quilt of loan options. A better idea would be to replace this tangle of subsidies with a single grant program focused on poor students. If properly targeted, even the current level of spending could go a long way toward covering students' attendance costs. That's one of many policies lawmakers should consider as they aim to reauthorize the Higher Education Act. It's a rare opportunity to improve access, cost, and quality across the system. Congress should seize it. This editorial was written by the Bloomberg Opinion Editorial Board. I'm David Shipley. For more Bloomberg Opinion, please go to Bloomberg.com/opinion or OPI and go on the Bloomberg Terminal.
This has been Bloomberg Opinion.
Bloomberg Opinion editorials can be heard every weekday at this time, and terminal customers can read more at OPIN Go. It is 6:39 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg Green Report. Here's Bob Moon.
One good turn deserves protection, but when there are now more than 18,000 of the tiny Midwest birds known as the interior least tern, they're ready to fly free of federal protection after 34 years on the endangered species list. So proposes the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They were once diminished by hunting for feathers used to adorn women's hats in the 1800s and hurt by the damming of major rivers like the Missouri. But the population of the variety of tern found in North America has increased tenfold since 1985. The delisting process is being started after computer modeling showed the population will be stable. Even conservationists and advocacy groups that often battle the Trump administration over what goes on and off the endangered list hailed the migrating bird's recovery, but they point out it's a good example of how the Endangered Species Act can stop what they call the extinction crisis. That's the Bloomberg Green Business Report. I'm Bob Moon.
All right, thank you, Bob. An economic downturn could be coming, and that typically means layoffs and cutbacks for companies. But for law firms involved in bankruptcy work, it could be a gold mine. Bloomberg's Nancy Lyons reports from the Bloomberg 99.1 newsroom in Washington.
The big question is, will law firms be ready to handle the increase in business? Bloomberg Law's Megan Tribe says maybe not.
The amount of quality top talent that you have that could fill holes isn't there. So the talent pool of quality bankruptcy restructuring lawyers is fairly small.
Instead of boutique firms handling bankruptcy cases, larger firms are stepping in.
They're really dominating some of the biggest bankruptcies that we've seen, especially in 2019.
In Washington, Nancy Lyons, Bloomberg Radio.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak on Bloomberg Radio.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
Right now, the future is being written by people like you. Creative thinkers, tech lovers, problem solvers. Are you going to stand by and watch? Well, show the world what you've got. Join others around the UK on an EY degree apprenticeship in digital and technology. And earn a salary working with exciting businesses while studying towards a degree. Don't let the future pass you by. Get involved. For more information and to apply, search EY Digital Apprentice.
There's something for everybody this Halloween at Aldi. Dead good sweets, decorations, face paints. Be afraid. Be very afraid to miss out on these shockingly low prices. In store now. Everybody get to Aldi for an amazing Halloween.
Halloween's back, alright.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and V Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
So you want to go to Manchester, but how? About time you invented your own form of transport. What are you thinking? A kind of seat on wheels? Great. With free Wi-Fi, fancy food and some tiny bottles of wine? Yeah. And this invention, it goes at 125 miles an hour with toilets? You mad genius. What is this totally original creation of yours? Oh, wait. You're going to kick yourself when you realise. Virgin Trains, proudly serving you for 22 years. Free Wi-Fi available across 88% of all journeys, excludes voyages.
Sorry, Stevie's a bit poorly, so we won't be coming to nursery today.
Okay, thanks for letting us know.
So I brought Max instead. I packed his favourite toy. He normally naps twice a day and loves playing outside.
Like getting your money's worth? Enjoy the delicious cheeseburger. Just 99p from the McDonald's Saver menu. From 10:30am, except in selected restaurants from 11am. Price and participation may vary.
The Peugeot Professional Van range is the beating heart of businesses across the UK. Whether you're on the road with only your DAB radio for company or navigating tight spots with rear parking sensors, all Peugeot Professional Vans give your business that edge. Visit your local Peugeot dealership during our October van event from the 10th to the 31st of October and drive away with an exclusive finance offer. Master the impossible. Peugeot Motor Company PLC is acting as a credit broker, not a lender. Finance subject to status. Terms and conditions apply. Business users and over 18s only. Guarantee may be required. PSA Finance UK Limited.
To a network of news and financial information 24 hours a day. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
The Associated Press reports newly elected Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky telling advisors even before he took office that he was concerned about pressure coming from President Trump to investigate Democrat Joe Biden. That was more than 2 months before the phone call that launched the impeachment inquiry. Pacific Gas and Electric has been turning the electricity off again in Northern California as high winds threaten to bring down power lines and spark wildfires. 180,000 customers, translating to 500,000 people, are in the dark this morning. And John Lawrence reports not everybody's happy about it.
Some are frustrated. PG&E CEO Bill Johnson says one of his workers was targeted.
Employee was driving a PG&E vehicle when a projectile hit the front passenger window. Our security team believes that projectile to be a pellet from a pellet gun.
These outages are not expected to be as widespread as the ones earlier this month.
The Washington Nationals now own a 2-0 lead in the World Series, beating Houston 12-3. Stock futures up a fraction this hour. I'm Michael Toscano.
If you're at the top of your profession, you're listening.
Are those gains all going to the elite?
Bloomberg Surveillance.
Does it spread beyond manufacturing?
Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrell. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. This update brought to you by IBKR and CME Group. The new micro E-mini futures contracts are available at IBKR at the lowest commissions. Learn more at IBKR.com/CME Mini. And futures this morning are on the rise. We go to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. And here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. That's right. U.S. futures are posting modest gains right now. Dow futures up 20 points. S&P's gained 4, and NASDAQ futures climbed by 36. The U.S. 10 yield at 1.76%. Gold is down 3. And Shanghai was a little changed overnight, while European markets are climbing, led by gains in the U.K. Back in the U.S., a busy day on the economic front. At 8:30, durable goods orders and initial jobs claims. At 9:45, market U.S. manufacturing and services PMIs. At 10 o'clock, new home sales. And at 11 o'clock, the Kansas City Fed. After the bell last night, Microsoft revenue beat the highest estimates. Tesla reported a profit in Q3. Shares are up 19% in the pre-market, and eBay is down 7% after its numbers. Regarding some of the earnings this morning, Dow EPS beat the highest estimates. Danaher cut full-year adjusted EPS continuing ops view, and 3M also cut its 2019 views. Wrapping things up, Ford was cut to hold over at Deutsche Bank, while Caterpillar's price target was cut to 110 over at UBS. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
All right, Bill, thank you. And here live breaking news over your Bloomberg. Type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, Republicans brought the Democrats' inquiry to a halt as around 24 GOP House members stormed into a closed-door deposition. The GOP maneuver delayed a deposition with Senior Defense Department official Laura Cooper until mid-afternoon, about 5 hours behind schedule. People across Northern California could be without power for the second time in 2 weeks today. Utility companies say the shutoff is aimed at preventing wildfires caused by downed power lines. In baseball, the Nationals now lead the Astros 2-0 in the World Series. Last night, Washington won 12-3 in Houston. In the NBA, the Nets and Knicks lost their season openers. The Celtics also lost. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Amy.
All right, thank you, Michael. And we are live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. It is 6:50 on Wall Street, and time now to check what is going on in D.C. Some of our top stories, including more national security figures ready to tell their stories to lawmakers on Capitol Hill, behind closed doors, of course. This after House Republicans stormed yesterday's closed-door meeting in a secure location. We'll get into that, as well as President Trump now threatening to veto a bill on foreign influence in elections. Let's welcome now Bloomberg Washington reporter Kathleen Hunter to clear up a few of these issues for us. Kathleen, thank you for taking the time with us this morning. We are watching for this testimony on Capitol Hill, and it's that smoking gun testimony of diplomat Bill Taylor that really has lawmakers' attention.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we saw the whole tone really shift on Capitol Hill yesterday after Taylor's testimony on Monday. We have, really for the first time, some Democrats who are part of the panel, Jamie Raskin of Maryland, for instance, talking openly about the idea of the Taylor testimony having been a smoking gun. And I think the bottom line here is that it's looking more and more like Democrats see a checkmate or an endgame in terms of impeachment, and it looks as though that's the direction that this is all heading.
So who is next up to appear before lawmakers?
Well, one of the people we haven't heard from yet, and we don't know when we would hear from, would be John Bolton, who's the recently departed National Security Advisor. He is someone that we would imagine could be a potential next bombshell in this inquiry, because we don't know exactly what he's going to say, but he, by all accounts, by Taylor's account and others, had some issues with the way in which this Ukraine policy was being conducted, and called it, by one account, called it crazy. And I think there's a sense that, he could be someone that could be a follow-up to Taylor that could provide some additional damaging information from the president.
Is there anything specific that you would be watching for on Capitol Hill?
Well, I think it'll be interesting to see how Republicans play this going forward. I think yesterday's move to storm the hearing room in some ways backfired. It came off as a bit of a stunt potentially. It obviously is an attempt by Republicans to sort of cast the inquiry as being illegitimate, and saying that essentially Democrats are, running this in a way that isn't allowing minority views. Now, it's important to keep in mind that Republican members of those three committees are in fact allowed into these hearings and are taking part in these hearings. It's just members that aren't on the committee that aren't being allowed in, and that is via a parliamentarian's ruling. And the parliamentarian is someone who's widely viewed as being nonpartisan. So I think that in some ways it'll be interesting to see what Republicans do next and how they continue to counter these allegations as they get more and more damaging for the White House.
Yeah, I want to dig into that just a little bit more, because when a couple of dozen House Republicans stormed what they call the SCIF, that secured location, they also brought with them those electronic devices, which is a huge no-no. I'm wondering about any repercussions from that. Are they going to just let this go? Like, what could happen because of that? They broke rules in doing that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's some question out there, and I'm not a lawyer, but there's a question out there whether or not, they broke federal law in addition to, just breaking protocol and violating the rules of the House. And so I think, if I'm a Democrat, if I'm Nancy Pelosi, I don't know that I necessarily want to get into a dispute with House Republicans. I think it may potentially politically play into their hand to try to, punish them somehow through the venue of House rules, give them a slap on the wrist, that sort of thing. But it certainly is important to balance that with the idea that this is supposed to be a classified hearing room, and so it's supposed to be secure, and if members don't respect that, then that becomes problematic. And so I think there is a question out there, both of what was done from a legal standpoint, both in terms of House rules and also in terms of federal law, but then also what the political strategy might be on the part of the Democrats if they want to take any kind of action in regards to that.
Up until this point, the Trump administration, Kathleen, had been blocking witnesses anyway and withholding documents, which seems like a more, a standard protocol when you want to prevent testimony on Capitol Hill. But from what I hear you explain, this testimony that we've heard so far could maybe trump, no pun intended, could trump those efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, now that we've heard from Taylor, and if we could hear from Bolton, who is someone who is no longer part of the administration, so wouldn't necessarily be subject to some of the arguments that the White House legal counsel has made in terms of why they need to withhold documents and witnesses, it does raise the question of whether or not that will be enough in and of itself for the House to proceed, with impeachment, even if they don't hear from additional witnesses. It sounds like now the time frame is accelerating. What they're talking about is, 2 more weeks potentially of, closed door proceedings and then moving into the public hearing phase, which would be, I think, faster than some people had initially anticipated.
And let's shift now from Capitol Hill to the White House, getting word that the president is prepared to veto a bill on foreign influence in elections. We've got about a minute here. Why would a sitting president not support that kind of a bill?
Well, I think that you have to understand it, you have to look into Trump's whole narrative here. And I think that his narrative all along has been that, Democrats are out to get him, and this legislation, which in particular is being pushed by House Democrats, backed by House Democrats, that, I think he's trying to cast that as another step in this political witch hunt. And so I think that would be, the logic behind it. But it does kind of, raise the question, I guess, for Democrats, by putting it forward, they put the White House in a bit of an awkward position of having to choose to either sign it or, potentially veto it. And that does, if he does veto it, it plays into the Democrats' counter narrative that, this is a administration that's looking to be above the law and to look overseas to, get assistance in this upcoming election next year, potentially.
All right. Bloomberg Washington reporter Kathleen Hunter, want to thank you very much for your time. You can read about these stories on Bloomberg.com or on the Bloomberg Terminal. And a reminder, you can follow all of the latest on Bloomberg Radio in Washington on Bloomberg 99.1 and 105.7 FM HD2. It is 6:56 on Wall Street.
The following commentary is from Bloomberg Opinion.
Nomination contest update. I'm Jonathan Bernstein, a columnist for Bloomberg Opinion. We've apparently reached the silly season of nomination politics, with very little happening on the surface at the moment. That's the formula for reporters chasing new and potentially dubious stories. And so we get speculation safe to ignore about new candidates jumping into the race. Speculation about candidates who might still have a chance with a bit of a surge, such as Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. It's somewhat arbitrary to single out 1 or 2 candidates and theorize that they're doing better than it seems. But reporters are going to write about candidates, and it makes sense to cover more than just the polling leaders. Even better, analysis of why the race might be less stable than it seems. Recent articles have examined Elizabeth Warren's relative lack of big-name endorsements and evidence that a fair number of Democrats don't want Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders to be nominated. If the price of good coverage is the occasional silly season item, perhaps that's not a bad trade-off. I'm Jonathan Bernstein. For more opinion, please go to Bloomberg.com/opinion or OPIN Go on the Bloomberg Terminal.
This has been Bloomberg Opinion.
Bloomberg Opinion editorials can be heard every weekday at this time, and terminal customers can read more at OPIN Go. Karen.
All right, Amy, thank you. Earnings crossing the Bloomberg Raytheon's profit beat. We're watching those earnings. That's third quarter profit beating analyst estimates. It boosted its outlook for the year as well. 3M is down almost 3% in early trading after cutting its full year profit forecast. And Southwest Airlines operating income was cut by $435 million through September, hobbled by the 737 MAX grounding and Boeing's inability to deliver more of the beleaguered jetliner. The carrier said damages will continue to accrue into 2020. Straight ahead, it's Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow. For Amy Morris, I'm Karen Moscow, and this is Bloomberg.
Influential.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Get the brands you love at littlewoods.com. Nothing beats a winter night in with the family and a box set. Get the LG 4K 43-inch TV with HDR for an unmissable $369. All with inclusive delivery and free returns. Hurry, offer ends 7th of November. Own it. Shop now at littlewoods.com.
To succeed in small business, you need technology that runs efficiently. When you partner with a Dell Small Business Technology Advisor, you get advice, one-on-one partnership, and tailored productivity solutions, including computers with Intel Core processors, servers, storage, networking, plus industry-leading monitors and accessories. It's how they help your small business make the most of every minute. To speak with an advisor today, call 0800 085 4878. That's 0800 085 4878.
The financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
I think the U.S. is going in for a couple years of very, very strong growth.
The deficit by early in the next decade will start to become a real problem for the markets.
Finance.
The consumer is really strong right now.
We don't realize how good times are now.
Investment.
The biggest problem that people have in investing in stocks is that they get out of the market.
It's not supposed to be easy. Anyone who finds it easy is stupid.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
From New York City for our audience worldwide, good morning, good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance. Coming up on the program, President Mario Draghi's farewell in Frankfurt, his final ECB news conference next hour. The latest data leaving his successor with more work to do. European PMIs disappointing. Earnings delivering. Stocks grind higher as Microsoft beats on the top and bottom line. From the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio, hello Thursday. Here is your Thursday morning price action. Equities firmer on the S&P 500 through 3,000 and up by around about 0.1% on the S&P. We are up by 3 or 4 points. In the bond market, your scores as follows for Treasuries: 2s through to 30s. Yields come in a single basis point. Your 10-year 175, your 2-year note 157. And in foreign exchange, the state of play in G10, the euro going absolutely nowhere ahead of this one. 44 minutes away from an ECB rate decision. 45 minutes after that, we will have a news conference with President Draghi, his final one. Wow, 8 years is up. Where has that time gone? Let's talk about this market, shall we? 3M cutting forecasts, CAT cutting forecasts, Texas Instruments cutting forecasts. The market getting a ton thrown at it, and it's holding up really well. To discuss, Kate Moore, BlackRock Global Allocation Investment Team Head of Thematic Strategy. Good morning to you, Kate.
Good morning.
Sometimes the information content in how a market responds to data can be just as important as the data itself.
That's right.
The last couple of days, do they speak to that?
Yeah, I think that's right. So there's one way to think about investing, which is it's not good enough to have the right information or what you perceive to be the right information. It's not good enough even to think about or think you have a view on what consensus thinks the right information is. You also have to get to that third degree. What does consensus think? Consensus thinks. And I think this is what's really critically important. Consensus thought things were going to get a lot worse. And we're at a place now where maybe on some of the industrial companies, we're not seeing a meaningful pickup in activity, but this pace of deceleration has slowed. And there are signs of life, and actually some words used like optimistic and optimism across a number of the cyclical sectors that are leading people to think that, fourth quarter, maybe first quarter of 2020 are going to be the cyclical low. And I think that's leading these people who have been positioned for, a prolonged slowdown, perhaps even a recession, to take on some of these cyclical companies again.
Well, let's take this morning as an example. Euro stocks holding up really quite well.
Yeah.
Even after another round of disappointing PMIs. A lot of people might be saying we've seen the worst of it. Are you confident we have?
No, the Euro stocks is a great example, actually, because if you think about this, the macro backdrop is still really weak. We have not actually gotten past that point of decelerating growth. The fundamental story for a lot of the European companies, particularly domestics, don't look exceptionally strong. Valuations, it's hard to argue they're cheap, especially when you think about the companies that are producing growth and the premium they're trading to the rest of the market. But, this really comes back to the sentiment, where a lot of people had not owned European stocks for a while. We had seen consistent outflows across all European managed funds as well as ETFs. And there's a little bit of a catch-up. The promise that maybe there's some fiscal stimulus, that maybe there's going to be some signs of life in 2020. And the market's outperformed. I'm not sure that outperformance is sustainable.
John, what Charles Cantor said with Neuberger Berman, it's idiosyncratic. Now, there's Twitter. cratering, down 13% off, lowest level since April, and off quarterly sales disappointment, et cetera, we're all buried in the idiosyncratic now.
Yeah.
For mere mortal investors just trying to make the retirement plan go up, do you take a bigger, broader view and just ignore the idiosyncratic?
Well, I think you've made a good point, though, Tom. There are lots of very specific stories, not just in this earnings season, but in terms of market leadership throughout the course of 2019. The good news is, especially I'd say the U.S. large cap space, has a large number of these strong idiosyncratic stories, and that's kind of what gives the strength of the S&P.
Have we ever been more miserable, John, going up 20% year to date? I don't think so.
The scars of Q4 2018 are still so deep, Kate.
Or 2000.
And I think a lot of people are still worried about going into 2020, levered up, adding some cyclicality to their portfolios without really seeing a bottoming out in the economic data. Talk to me about the spread right now between sell-side expectations and buy-side sentiment.